You're a startup, you get really excited and turn into like go 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 mode, and everyone like is really scrappy and they can work with whatever they've got. But we kind of throughout that midst and to reach that milestone, I think we really had to decide to flip a switch and sort of become that like almost like big girl company and start to like define our procedures and processes. Yeah, I think a lot of different qualities can be really important for a chief of staff, but definitely organization and communication, I think, have to probably be your two top.
Hi all, good morning. So today I have someone very special with us who is all about driving success to organizational excellence. She is the chief of staff of a current growing company which is on its way up the ladder. Let's welcome Molly on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, where she will tell us like what it's like being chief of staff of a growing company, what are her day-to-day responsibilities, and what she has learned along the way. Hi Molly, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
And well, thank you so much for joining us, Molly. So, Molly, Chief of Staff, that's a big position. So, what are your responsibilities like? What is your day to day like? What can you give us a glimpse of it?
Definitely. So my day to day, it can be very different, which is part of what I love about the role. So I am chief of staff. Like oftentimes they'll report to the CEO. I'm chief of staff to the CRO, which is unique and kind of fun in itself. So the go to market team is really um, my main function, which is what the CRO oversees. And across the go-to-market team, I'm responsible for a lot of the cross-functional comms. Making sure that bridge is bridged and there's no gaps there. Um, Meetings, a couple of meetings I'm responsible for, go-to-market leader meetings. We have a biweekly mastermind. Again, that's kind of a piece of the comms. And then a lot of special projects and reporting. And then I found my hands in a lot of the CRM work that we have and different tech that the whole team use. So it's kind of like pretty wide across the board. Yeah.
Okay. A follow up question for that, Molly, would be is because you're involved with so many other members of the C suite, how do you prioritize? How do you make sure everything gets done and you get everything done in a timely manner while making sure that the quality of the work is not compromised?
That's a really good question. And you kind of have to, I think each person has to find their own system for that. But I am a big list person. I make a lot of lists and prioritize those lists, move things up and down. So that's how I keep myself on track. I think, yeah, each person will find their own. Some people calendar block. It can be different for everyone, but that's the way I do it. Not a
Okay, no,
perfect solution, but
I wish there was a one size fits all solution, but I think it works for everyone. Some prefer less, some prefer just going with the flow, and you found something that worked for you, which is a most important thing. So thank you for sharing that. My next question for you, Molly, would be is what skills or qualities do you believe are the most crucial for someone who is at your position? Like, what do you think is something that would make them an ideal candidate for someone who might be considering a position as chief of staff?
yeah, I think a lot of different qualities can be really important for a chief of staff, but definitely organization and communication, I think, have to probably be your two top. Like you said, there's a lot of competing priorities for the role. If you can't keep yourself organized and situated at all times and have anything handy and ready that needs to be, then you're not going to be successful. Communication, just because the role is so cross functional, that's got to be always top of mind. You hear something that might even have the tiniest impact on one of the other leaders or team members. You got to make sure you bring that up right away. So none of those lines get crossed because there's always a million things going on. Everyone has ideas and people can be running in parallel and not know it. So you have to be that gap bridged.
I love that. I think specifically COVID started the wave of remote work, so you really need to be strong in communication to ensure that your message gets sent across in a way that everyone understands it. So thank you for sharing that. My next question would be on one of your LinkedIn posts, Molly. So in one of your posts, you mentioned that you reached a milestone of $10 billion in worth of proposals sent through Pursue It. Can you share some of the insights that you learned through that experience? Because that is a big amount and it does showcase your leadership experience.
Yeah, that was a really exciting one, particularly for our founder. As you can imagine, I think the milestone just really showed like how far we'd come as a business. So we were really excited about that. Some learnings that I think we found throughout building up to that 10 billion was you can't. It's really hard to move from A to B in a business without best practices, the right leaders, onboarding. So when you're a startup, you get really excited and turn into like go 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 mode, and everyone like is really scrappy and they can work with whatever they've got. But we kind of throughout that midst and to reach that milestone, I think we really had to decide to flip a switch and sort of become that like almost like big girl company and start to like define our procedures and processes and like build an onboarding. But it really took like acknowledging that we were missing that and we needed that to scale in order to for us to prioritize it and for it to enable us to scale. So that was one big learning. Absolutely. So keep that in mind. Any startups out there who are listening, take a second to think about that. And then another one is people. People are really important. And as you grow, obviously people are going to change throughout your organization. So just don't be afraid, I think, to accept that change and kind of embrace it. Like people outgrow companies at different stages. Some people stay with them for 20 years. So just making sure you're always like evaluating that and keeping an eye on it, because ultimately, like particularly your leaders and people are going to be the most important at driving obviously the rest of the team and then getting to those big milestones like 10 billion for us. So I think those were two really big ones.
Okay, no, those are amazing, and kudos to all of you and your team members to achieve such a big milestone, specifically because it showcases that your company is doing really well. So thank you for sharing that. A follow-up question for that would be, is you mentioned something interesting, which is some people tend to stick with the company, but some people tend to outgrow it. But there's a lot of debate going on these days regarding employee retention. So how do you make sure that employees stick with you? I mean, of course, some people like to move on to the next chapter, but what can companies do internally just to make sure that they can keep the employees with them and help them grow along the journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, and another lesson learned is like when you're a growing company, there are a lot of things to prioritize. So, really prioritizing your people is how you're going to be keeping them. Even when it's hard and you're busy and you have 100 things going on, you got to take a step back and think, how am I prioritizing my people in the past week or month? And how am I planning on doing in the next couple months? One thing I think that's really important, especially with remote work, and hate to sound like a broken record, but it's really making those in-person times special. Even if they don't happen often, you are a remote team. When you do end up with, even if it's just a couple extra people visiting the office, what are you doing to get the whole office together to hang out? Or if you don't have an office, once a year, let's get together so that people feel comfortable, like reaching out when they're not reaching out to a different team member, maybe on a different team, when they are not asking them for something work related, like really starting to build that bond. So yeah, I think just taking the extra step to make sure that's on your priority list, especially when people's priority lists can be so long.
I love the people first mentality, specifically when you treat employees like assets rather than liabilities, where you make sure that they're a part of something, specifically a company culture where they are essentially a group of friends, whether it's family members or something like that. So, thank you for sharing that. Last question, Molly. Is there anything that you've learned along the way, whether it was a hard lesson that came to you or whether it was something that you picked up along the way that would help people that are currently being laid off and might be facing a difficult time?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to jump into new areas that you're not used to, or if you just want to learn a new skill because you want to learn a new skill and it's going to help build your background ultimately, go ahead and do it. But it's definitely a tough market out there. So apply for the job that you might not have otherwise. Don't sell yourself short, and make sure you're not turning away from things because you're unsure about how they would fit on your resume, and or you're unsure if you'd be qualified for that. Just take the leap. Reach out to those people you may only have talked to a few times on LinkedIn. Just really be spreading your network and taking those leaps, I would say.
Okay, no, I think that's very important. But you did mention something when you do reach out to people, you want to reach out to them in a certain way that you are likely to get a response. Can you maybe showcase, based on your experiences, how you can leverage your network in a way where you are likely to get responses?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to be completely genuine in your outreach. Like sometimes we can find ourselves being a little bit more formal, which is good in situations when it's really appropriate, but a lot of the times just being super genuine, straightforward, why you're reaching out, what you're interested in. I mean, still trying to add that piece of like how you can connect with them, like, oh, I saw in your profile or a mutual connection so and so, like in making sure you're tying in those pieces. But I just think that that genuineness is really what's going to get you far and get you most of those responses, because imagine, just put yourself in the person's shoes. I'm always happy to respond to someone who reaches out in a genuine manner.
Okay. Well, Molly, this sums up our conversation, and Molly is very correct because I reached out to her for a podcast invitation, and because there was common interest, she did decide to come on as a guest and share her wonderful insights. Molly, thank you so much for coming on the show, for sharing your experience as you paved your way up the ladder of a company that is fast growing. Your experiences, your advice specifically for people who were recently laid off would be very useful. It was a pleasure having you today as a guest.
Thanks so much. Great speaking with you.